Okay. Thank you so much for joining the Charity Insights Canada project for our third webinar in the data literacy series. We are really enjoying this series, and we're so happy that you're with us today to go to the next level of a spreadsheet education, spreadsheets leveling up your skills for nonprofit professionals. In case this is your first time coming to something hosted by CICP, I want to tell you just a little bit about us. The Charity Insights Canada project is a research project that currently has a term of 5 years. We're in year 4. Every single year, we have a panel of about 1,000 Canadian charities that we survey, and those wonderful volunteers answer about 40 surveys a year on a whole range of topics, and we are currently in year 4 of the project. So we've got all kinds of data that we have been examining and analyzing. And so we've developed a certain amount of skill when it comes to data literacy that we're really happy to share with you in these webinars. My name is Kate Cornell. I'm the Senior Advisor on Strategic Communications, and my pronouns are she, her. I want to, before introducing our facilitator today, Tara, I want to acknowledge that I'm calling in from Scarborough. Scarborough is part of the Toronto Treaty Territory, and the keepers of this gorgeous land by Lake Ontario are the Haudenosaunee Confederacy.
Cranes would go there to I guess.
The Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, and the Anishinaabe, especially including the Mississaugas of the Credit, for whom there are most of the treaty agreements are with the Mississaugas of the Credit in this treaty territory. I also want to acknowledge that Carleton University is located on the unceded, unsurrendered lands of the Algonquin people, and that is where the CICP project is located. We are recording today's session, and it will be available later in a week or so with French subtitles. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Tara McWhinney. Tara is our postdoctoral fellow with CICP. She has a PhD in social work and has has extensive experience teaching, particularly with working with data and research methods. So, Tara, we had a wonderful time last week at the webinar. Really excited to learn with you again today. Go right ahead, and I'm going to share some of the materials in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kate. So hello, everyone. As Kate said, my name is Tara. Sorry, I'm sharing, but I don't see myself in the video, Kate. I only see you. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. And here, I'm just going to spotlight for everyone. There we go. Okay, so everyone, so Kate, that was such a lovely introduction. Thank you. I'm just going to reshare my screen here, and yeah, so we're going to learn some skills for spreadsheets. Don't worry if you're new to this. We're going to be doing this from a beginner level, learning some of the XLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, and how to deal with duplicates in your data. And Kate, if you could just put a link, if you haven't done so already, in the chat. This is designed to be an interactive lesson. So I'm going to be demonstrating how to do stuff in Excel and Google Sheets, and then you'll have a chance, if you have either the workbook in Excel or Sheets downloaded, whichever one you work with, and then you'll be able to have a few minutes to practice the lessons. And you'll notice when you open the workbook that the lessons are on different sheets, and there's I'll show you, but there's some extra sheets with tables that we'll be working with as well. And you'll have a few minutes, so you'll have a few minutes to practice after each. And because we're recording this, we're going to make it available on our website, so you're totally able to go back and practice again with the recording. I've also put together a list of extra resources that you'll see in the same place where the workbooks are. So the resources are videos, and the videos are things that we're learning today or things that I'm talking about today, and also some extra sort of things that you can learn to build on, because we're going to do the basics of these functions today, and there'll be some extra things in the resources. And then the tip sheets have tips on everything. So you shouldn't have to write anything down. I mean, you're welcome to, but everything, as you see when you open the workbook, there's lots of instructions, and then there's the tip sheets as well that go along. So what we're doing today is we're going to look at removing duplicates. I'm going to discuss some of the ways, some best practices with removing duplicates, and we're going to look at one way to do this. There are others, and I have some videos in the extra resources that show other ways to do this in Excel and in Sheets. And like I said, the basics of VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP, and discussing why we're doing both today and the differences between them. And then we're briefly going to look at, I'm just going to have a little discussion on some best practices for spreadsheets as well at the end. So like I said before, don't worry if you're not an expert. Spreadsheets, especially functions 2, can feel intimidating, and that's very normal. We're going to explain XLOOKUP and VLOOKUP today. So it's not about becoming an expert, but sort of getting a foundation where then you can build on those skills as well.
And I should have mentioned, Tara, that if people have questions, they can put up their hand or ask something in the chat, and I will definitely monitor the chat for Tara as questions come up.
Yeah, so I'll run through the lesson, and then when we have the time to practice, we'll address the questions in the chat. You can also raise your hand, and Kate will flag it for me. And so if you have questions while we're doing the practice. And at the end, we're pretty tight on time today, but I'm happy to stay for an extra minute if there's any questions lingering at the end as well. Okay, so I'm going to start off in Google Sheets. Most of what we're doing today will be exactly the same in Sheets and in Excel. There were some differences when it comes to the method we're using for removing duplicates. So I'll switch over to Excel. It's actually a little bit easier in Excel. But the way that the workbooks are designed is that you'll see a table on the left, and then on the right, some of the points that I'm going over about the lesson. And then we have a numbered list, and that's the exercises that you'll be going through. I'll be demonstrating exactly what's in the exercises, and then you'll have a chance to practice them. And then, as I said, if you look along the bottom of the worksheet, you're going to see different tabs, and we'll move along through those tabs together as we go through the lesson. So the first thing is removing duplicates. And I just want to say in general that it's good practice when you're doing this type of analysis and then removing things to always work from a copy of your table, of your data. So you can open a new sheet, copy your table over, and then when you do your duplicate analysis, if you happen to make a mistake, you always have the raw data that you started with on another sheet. And we also want to inspect. So we're going to use some conditional formatting today to highlight the duplicates for us, because we want to inspect, because duplicates aren't always errors. And you're going to see that when we go through the reasoning behind what we decide is a duplicate and what is not in the data set that we have here today. And the other thing is to always keep records of what you've done. Now, if you have a large table and you're removing duplicates, you're not going to be able to copy and paste them somewhere to see exactly what was removed, but you can keep a record of your reasoning behind what you considered a duplicate and what you did not. And the other thing is the way that we're doing this today, we're using the remove duplicate tools in Excel and in Google Sheets. And the way that this works, how they read it is, you'll see once we open up the remove duplicates, it's going to have all your columns, and you can select which columns you want it to base the analysis on. And what that means is that any column that's selected, if everything matches across the different rows in those exact columns, then it's going to treat it as a duplicate. And it's going to keep the first instance and remove the second one. So you'll see why that's important when I get to the end of the lesson. Now, so that means if you have fewer columns selected, more things will likely be removed. And the more stuff you have selected, the less that will be removed. So to start off with, we're going to use conditional formatting to highlight our duplicates. We can see in this table here, we have a table and it's about participants and what program they're in, what their start date was, and whether they completed it. And you can see visually that, we have one here for Taylor Wilson, attended the same program, same start date, but we have a difference here in the completion. One says yes and one says no. And if we look a little further down, we see Quinn Johnson, same mental health support program, same start date, but it says no. So that's an exact duplicate. Those are all the same. So first of all, but we need to see more. We need to see everything that is there in the duplicates. So the first thing I would do is highlight. This is a little harder to do in Google Sheets, but if we highlight the column, we're going to use conditional formatting. So we go to the Format tab, and we go conditional formatting, and you're going to see a box pop up over here. So right about it says apply to range, and because we've selected that column, we can see that it's the A1 to A1000. That's the A column. And what we want to do today, there's lots of different conditional formatting that you can do, but what we need to do today is to put in a custom formula. Now, you can just copy this formula. It's easy to copy things up in the formula bar up here, or you can type it out however you want. There's some spaces, it works without the spaces as well. So what this formula says, it's a countive formula, and if you're not familiar with it, so you can already see the highlighting happening here. It's basically asking it, look in column A, which is this A:A, and start at cell A1 and highlight anything that happens more than once. So that's where the greater than 1 is. Now, if we wanted to do column B, we could simply put B's in for the A's and it would still work. And then it gives you an option of color. I like to use red, which is the default in Excel. And then here we go, we have our duplicates highlighted. We can close out this bracket so we would still stays, the conditional formatting stays. The next thing I want to do, and I'll show this in Excel in a second, it's much easier, but the next thing I want to do is sort, because we can see here we have some duplicates, but like 1034, it's not beside it, so it's not easy to visually inspect. So because these are numbers, it says A to Z, but that's smallest. It doesn't matter, we could go largest to smallest too. So now we can start to see, oh, we even have some triplicates in here. So I'm just going to jump over to Excel, but highlighting duplicates in Excel is much easier. So you can see the same table here in Excel. And if I highlight the ID column, and then I go to, it's actually on the Home tab. So it usually starts off on the Home tab. But if I go to the Home tab and I go to conditional formatting, we want to highlight cells so we can see that. And then once we scroll over that, it gives us, it actually has a duplicate values. And you can change the color, it defaults to red. So that's a little bit easier in Excel to do. And then once again, we want to sort smallest to largest. The other thing is in that both Sheets and Excel, I have these formatted as tables. So I have these filter buttons, which makes sorting a little bit easier. We did a webinar on basics of Excel and Google Sheets where I showed some other ways to sort data. But one of the tips for today is to have your data formatted as a table. And there's a resource on how some things you can do with formatted tables in Excel and in Sheets in the list that we have for you. So now we have all of these here. And so this will look a little bit different, but it's both under the data tab. But first we need to decide what is a duplicate and what is not before we decide which columns we're going to select. So if I was here, we'd say, okay, we're not sure if Jordan Smith has completed the program or not. It's the same start date, but maybe we're not sure. So we might want to leave these ones in order to inspect them later. But let's say Taylor Brown here, well, someone can attend 2 different programs. So that's not going to be a duplicate. We can decide that and we can write it out in our reasoning. But someone that's exactly the same, like Morgan Johnson, that's a duplicate. So if we wanted to remove all the ones where it was exactly the same, in Excel, we would go up to the Data tab, and we'll find Remove Duplicates over here. Now Excel says my data has headers, which is great. If that's not on, you need to click that on, but then you see the names of all of your columns here, and we want to keep them all selected. So we hit OK, and then it's going to tell you it found 18 duplicates were removed. So you might want to put that down for your records too. So I'm going to leave that here, and I'm going to show you it's very similar in Google Sheets. And I'm going to go back there for a second so I can show everyone. So here it's also in the data tab, but they call it data cleanup, and it's one of the options in there. And then we hit remove duplicates. And for Sheets, I find it doesn't often have the header check mark done for a lot of different things. But once we do that check mark, then we see the names of our columns in here rather than it just the generic column A, B, or C. So we can go ahead and say remove duplicates. And then we can see that some of the red highlights have disappeared. Now this is as far as I'm going to get you to practice today. So we're going to set a timer for 5 minutes, but when you come back, I'm just going to show you how we might deal with if we decided that if we made some decisions or we investigated a bit about the completed program. But go ahead and give the conditional formatting a try, and also removing the duplicates. And Kate, can you set us a timer?
Yes, 5 minutes has started. You weren't kidding about it being easier in Excel compared to Google Sheets. There's like a lot more to click in Google Sheets.
Yeah. And I don't use Sheets like very often, so I searched around, but I mean, that was the easiest formula and the easiest way I could find to do it. So
yeah, and certainly, I've worked in a lot of small charities, like Google Sheets is free. So yeah, I suspect that a lot of people are working in that program.
all right, so we'll be chatting. If you want to turn the volume down while you practice, that's fine. And don't forget to raise your hand or
yeah, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat.
yeah. Oh, I have a direct message, someone asking if there's a template we're working off. There is a link to if you go to the resources for this webinar link, you can find the workbooks that we're using. So either you can download one for either Excel or Google Sheets. That was a direct message to me, Kate. So
now you have a question in the chat. Can you show where the remove duplicates part is in Excel? I can't find it.
yeah, I'll do that again. It's under the data tab. So if you look at but I'll show you. If you go across the top, so you're likely on home. If you just opened this up, you want to go on over to data. And then it's in here under data tools, remove duplicates.
Great, thanks. You got another question.
Okay.
Oh, Anna says mine looks quite different. I guess that in different versions of Excel, it might be in different places, I guess.
Yes, it could actually, and that's one thing that's hard for me to account for. All of that. I know some people are using Mac and PC too, but it should be somewhere under data.
We have a Google Sheets question. Can you show us where we paste the formula in conditional format rules on Google Sheets again, please?
Yep. So when we go here, we go to, I'll just show you, and we go to format. So we're in conditional formatting. I think they asked what we do in there. I'll just add another rule. So you want to go, format under format rules, because you have your range already if you selected the column. You want to go under format cells if and scroll all the way down to the bottom. And custom formula is. Once you click on custom formula is, you're going to get a box here where you type in the formula, or you can just copy and paste it to from the spreadsheet. I'm just gonna cancel that one so we don't have too many highlighted.
What a great question, Flora. Can we trust this process of duplicate removal?
Well, you can trust you can trust it to remove based on the columns that you've selected. So remember, whatever columns you select, if those columns match across the row, then it's going to keep the first one it finds and remove any of the duplicates, any of the other ones. So it takes a little bit kind of to get your head around, but I'm going to show them in, when we come back, I'm going to show how I would deal with the completed ones that are yes and no. So
thanks so much, Flora. I also would have been like going through and removing them individually, and yeah, I would have the same concern.
I've
of
been
like,
there
when
I started out too. Yeah.
Huge time saver.
And I think it's just really important to remember to document the reasoning, right? And you could keep a document of which columns were selected once it says how many were removed. Like if you do, a second step process, like you can just keep records of everything and keep a copy of, what you had before to be safe. So then if someone wants to check and
yeah. And going back to your very first comment, create a duplicate of your data, of your spreadsheet before you begin. So if you worry like I do that you're going to make a mistake, then you already have the original to go back to.
Yeah, and you can easily, like, control A, it will copy your whole table, then you hit copy and you copy it all to a new sheet, a new tab, and label it however you want, like duplicate analysis of. But that way, you've got a backup plan if something goes wrong when you're removing. And Control Z is always undo. That's a good one too. You can undo any last action with Control Z.
Yeah, we have one. We're almost at 5 minutes, Tara, and we have one quick question related to last week. How would you use the formula for text rather than numbers? Oh, maybe it's not related to last week. Sorry.
I believe the formula should work the same. I mean, it's just saying whether it's text or numbers. If it matches, then it should highlight it.
Okay. Oh, sorry. There were a couple. This was the question that I meant to say. Are you going to touch on creating a formula? Louise, we did do that in last week's webinar. Are you going to touch on that this week at all?
Like we're keeping things pretty simple for today because we're going to be looking at the functions of XLOOKUP and VLOOKUP. But yeah, if you want to start learning how formulas, we didn't do count if formulas, but we looked at some basics of formulas. But so we're sort of starting at this level, and as we do more webinars, maybe next year we'll put it on, like we could have a whole one just on formulas and a whole one just on functions. But right now, we're just kind of introducing things. So
Great. We have one last, you're welcome, Louise. We have one last question before we move on. We've had 5 minutes to play with this. Anna asks, once you've removed the duplicates, how do you remove the color from the ones that aren't actually duplicates?
Oh, okay. You could do that. So in conditional formatting, I think if you just go in, oh, sorry. I got to bring it back up again. You should just be able to delete it and have it disappear, I would think. So I can just simply delete it if I bring up my conditional formatting again. And then in Excel, let's see. I haven't actually done this in a while, but actually, sorry, I don't know if I can answer that for Excel. I wonder, does it have... Sorry, yeah, I can't answer that one for Excel.
Tara, we can always send out
I haven't done that in a while.
Sure.
Usually you just end up removing them and then it disappears because they're gone. So, but maybe if you even just simply, Sorry, I can find out the answer.
Yeah, we can send them an email later.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Maybe is there, because there's no like so here you guys are learning that I learn how to do things, and I am no like spreadsheet know everything expert either. So that one we'll have to look up. Okay, so just we have to kind of keep with time. I just wanted to show one more thing is that say we did an inspection and we decided that, well, yes, if there is a second, if it's the same program, same start date, but we have yes completed and no completed, and we want to just keep the yes ones because we know that now that like that means somebody went in. So because it only keeps the first one and then removes the second, we can do an analysis that doesn't include the completed column. But first we would want to sort so that all the yeses came first before we did that. And now if we go in, we select all the columns except for completed. We remove our duplicate analysis, our duplicates, and then we will get down to just the ones that have different programs. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to switch over to VLOOKUP here.
As you move over there, Tara, I just want to say crowdsourcing is the best. I love the charitable sector. Ben said that you just need to go into conditional formatting in Excel and clear rules.
Thank you, Ben. Okay. So,
oh, yeah, so did Fiona. Sorry. Yeah. Yay.
That is lovely. Okay, so there's the answer for Excel. All right, so when it comes to VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP, it's going to work exactly the same in both Excel and in Sheets. The one thing that you'll notice in the formulas that I have put down here, or the functions are a little bit different than formulas, but these are functions, VLOOKUP. Each one has different arguments. So we can see that equals VLOOKUP, that's the name of the function. And then inside the brackets, we have different arguments. The names of these arguments are different in Excel and in Sheets, but they are exactly the same, and the function works exactly the same. So basically, you'll see different names there, but it's the same. So one of the reasons now XLOOKUP does everything that VLOOKUP can do. But it's really good to learn VLOOKUP when you might come across it, because in Excel, only newer versions have the functionality of XLOOKUP. So in VLOOKUP is still the #1 used function in both Sheets and Excel. So it's good to learn how to use this as well. And they're very similar. It's just that XLOOKUP has some different features, and so we'll get to that when we look at that one. But basically the way this works is that it allows you to look for a value in a column and return a match in the row that it's found. So what do we mean by that? Well, let's say we were given this table, and this is about our grants or different grants. And they say, okay, well, we have the grantor ID number in here, but that we really want to have the grantor's name. And so you've been given this with an extra column. Now, where do we find grantor name? Well, if we look at our tabs below, we have a table that's color-coded orange as well. And when we skip over there, here's the table. It's on a separate table. Now we have the grantor ID and the grantor name in here and some other information. Now, because we have a similar value here, the ID number to the table that we want to source from, we can use VLOOKUP to do this for us rather than going in and, as you can see, the table is very large and typing them all in. So to start off the formula, so what it does is we say here, okay, we want to look for F008 in this table. And once we do the VLOOKUP function, it's going to look down here until it finds F008. It's going to look across as far as we tell it to, and it's going to return the information that's there. So we're going to tell it to look across to the next column, and it's going to return Food Security Coalition. So let me show you how this is done. So when you start typing a function, and same with formulas, you always start with an equals. And that lets them know that lets Sheets in Excel know that you're going to be doing a formula or function. Now, when we start typing in the name of the function, you're going to find that it's going to start to give you some options. So I only had to do V and L. You can hit tab or you can click on the function itself as well. And that's going to get you to the next bracket. You can also just keep typing and put in the bracket as well. But it makes it a little bit easier to do it that way. So the first part of the argument is our lookup value, or it's called a search key in Excel. So that is what are we going to be searching for in the other table. And here, that is this value here. Now, after each argument, we put in a comma. It's very important. And if you mess up, you can always hit the back key. If you forget to put in a comma and you click on something else, I've done that before. Escape also works too, to start over, but you can also use the back key. So we have our lookup value. Now we need to tell it where to look it up. So after we put in the comma, we can go here, and this is called table array or range in Google Sheets. Now, we need to tell it where to look, and it's already saying, okay, grantor references the name of the sheet that I'm on, so it's already saying that. And we're going to do this one way because I want to show you a few things, and then I'm going to show you a better way to do it. But we're going to start here so we understand how this works. And we're simply going to highlight this whole table because we want it to search inside this table. And then I'm going to put in another comma. Now, the way VLOOKUP works is that it's going to start, because I started highlighting here. Now, I could have an extra column in front of this and just start, but you want to have on the very left column that you're highlighting, that's where it's going to look, and then it's going to count over as many columns as you tell it. So because I highlighted this whole table, it starts here. A is column 1, B is column 2, C is column 3, and then column 4, column 5. Because we want grantor name, the next thing we have to put in, and this is called the index number, or the column index number, is I have to put in a 2. So I'm saying look down this first column that was highlighted and look over to column 2. So 1, 2. Next is an optional argument, but in VLOOKUP, it's not really optional. Basically, you have to tell it if you want an exact match or an approximate match. So an exact match is 0 or false, and approximate is true or 1. I'm going to put in a 0 for exact. And the reason why I'm doing that is because if this column that it's looking down is not sorted, then if you put in approximate match, you're going to get all sorts of wrong answers. Ours is sorted, but because it's good practice to default to 0, 95% of the time, that's how you're going to use it. And so we're just going to put in the 0 there so that we get it correct. And here we can see that F008 is Food Security Coalition, and that is correct. Now what we want to do, and this is where I'm going to show you where we missed a step, because now when we want to copy down the formula, there's a little fill handle here we did in our last, but you could also just copy and paste. But if you pull down the formula, I'm not going to go all the way down, we start to see these errors, and I want you to understand why. So in our formula here, we can see we highlighted the table A1 to E11, but what happened when we started copying down? That table range starts jumping down, okay? Because that's the way the fill handle works. It does stuff like that. We didn't fix our range, and you fix your range using the F4 key. Now you can do that when you're doing your formula. After you've selected the table, before you put in the next comma, you can simply hit F4 and it will fix your table arrange. The other thing you can do now is afterwards we can highlight that table range, and when I hit F4, I'm going to see all of these dollar keys. That means my range is fixed. So, oh, sorry. I'm just going to escape that for a second. I should have done that up here, actually. Sorry, I clicked down. So we want to start at the top, and we're going to hit enter. Okay, so now when we copy down our formula, we see that. Now, so this is one way. I'm going to get you to practice this way, and then I'm going to show you some ways that we can make this a little more dynamic, because right now because we're picking a table here, what happens when we start adding more rows, because we've only told it to look in this one table. but we're just going to set the clock. You can try it. You can fix your table arrange after, or you can, remember, you can hit F4 as soon as you've selected the table. So Kate, we'll start our timer.
Okay.
Thanks.
And just a note, when Tara was testing out this webinar on the CICP team, I forgot to do the comma. The comma is very important.
Yeah, the comma is very important. In which case you can, if you start clicking on other things and it looks really weird, just hit escape and start over or backspace.
Learn from my mistakes.
So the comma separates each argument inside the brackets.
Yes.
And right now we're looking at 4 different arguments.
I love this particularly for membership lists. I love this for people who are obviously working for funders and maybe a larger organization that has multiple applications out there that would have a list like this. So yeah, I'm really happy to see so many people attending this session, because I just think that these skills are particularly valuable for nonprofit professionals who are like working with these very rich data sets and spreadsheets in their work. This, I think, is going to be a huge time saver.
Yeah. And there's lots of different things you can do with this. We'll see when we do the XLOOKUP that we're kind of using it in a different way, like sort of to set up a like search by name and then get a bunch of information from a table when it finds that name. So there's different things you can do with it.
If you have any questions, please share them in the chat or put up your hand. That's been 5 minutes, Tara.
Okay, all's been quiet.
I know. Any questions? Hope that was enough time for everybody. Oh, yay, we got some thumbs up.
Okay, well, you can always come back and practice. I just want to show a few things. So I have a VLOOKUP dynamic tab, and I'm just gonna show something here. So if you can also do VLOOKUP in ways that, like I said, because that table, we only picked certain parts of it. And now I have this formatted as a table. So we're going to see some different things coming up here. But when you have your data formatted as a table, it actually helps because it makes anything to do with functions and formula a little bit more when you start adding extra rows or extra columns. Well, not with VLOOKUP, I'll show you. The column thing doesn't work. But if you start adding extra rows, what's going to happen? So one thing that you can do, even if it's not formulated as a table, so I've picked grantor ID, I go to reference table. Instead of selecting just within here, I can actually select whole columns. And you can see I have this formatted as a table. So it's saying grantor reference table AB. I can keep going across, but we know the data that we want is right in here. So after I do that, then I finish off the same 2, 0, bracket, hit enter. And what happens, because I have this formulated as a table in both, is that I don't need to fix the table arranged because it's looking at these columns in here. And the other thing is too, is that if I were, in the interest of time, I'm gonna keep going, but if I were to add another one here, it's gonna, and then, in this, here we add in the grant, when we add in the new grantor ID number, it's going to update and work as well, which is really cool. So if it's not formatted table, use whole columns, and if it, or even if it is, and then anyway, it automatically updates, which is great. The other thing is that one thing about VLOOKUP is, one of the limitations is if someone comes in and inserts a column into this table, it's going to break your formula because we've told it to look in column 2 and there's nothing in column 2 now. And so in Excel, it returns a 0, and in Google Sheets, it'll just be blank. So we can still see, that the formula is still there, but it doesn't have anything to return. All right, so that's VLOOKUP and a few tricks on how to work with that. Now we're going to jump on over to XLOOKUP. And maybe what I'll do is, for those on Sheets, I'll just jump over. Like I said, this works the same on both, but just for the sake of being fair, I'll jump on over to Google Sheets here. So what we're doing now is a little bit different. We're going to do it with XLOOKUP, but you could do this with VLOOKUP as well. But we want to create a table where right here under participant name, we type in a name, and I'm just going to type one in that I know is in my table. And then we want it to return information on that participant. And there could be multiple things here that we have it return. But this is what we want to do. And you can see in our participant tracker table that we have participant names here, and we have a lot of other information. The first thing we're going to do formula is to return caseworker. Now, if you notice, caseworker is to the left. Now, Google, like we said, XLOOKUP can look both ways, which is great. So it doesn't matter that this is on to the left. And the other one we're going to look up is follow-up completed, and it's to the right. The other thing is that XLOOKUP won't break if new columns are added to the big table. So that's also great. It also can look vertical and horizontal, but we won't be going over that today, but just so you know, it can pretty much look in any direction. The other nice thing about XLOOKUP is that there's only 3 arguments that are absolutely necessary because it defaults to an exact match. So you don't have to put in that 0. If you wanted, there is an optional argument, and here's the full formula. Search key, lookup, and result range are the only 3 we need. These are square brackets, remember, optional arguments. There is a match mode argument, but we don't need it if we're doing exact match. It can also do things like missing value is if there's no value there, it returns a message or something, whatever you want it to return instead of that 0. And there's search mode, which allows you to search not only from top to bottom, which VLOOKUP only looks down. It can also say find the value that's start searching from the bottom up. So those are other things, and there's resources, video resources to learn that. But for today, we're just going to go with the 3. So if we go here, and because we're using whole columns for this as well, you can just pick part of a column, but again, you'd want to fix your range, but we're going to use whole columns to make this more dynamic. So we start here where we want it to return something for caseworker, and we start typing in our XLOOKUP formula. Here we go, that's the one we want. So the first thing again is our search key. So what are we searching by? We're searching by participant name. We want it to go down the participant name column, find the name, and then return the caseworker. So this is our search box where we type in the name. So that's our search key. And then we go over, oh, I almost forgot the comma, Kate. We were just talking about that. We put in the comma. We go over participant tracker. The first thing we have to tell them is where to find that search key. So the first thing is column C, because that has our participant names. We put in comma, and then we want it to return caseworker. So we select column B and we put a bracket in and we hit enter. I like that it brings you back after you've hit enter, and we can see here that Grace Patel has the caseworker J Brown, and we can see that that's correct. So that's great. And then we simply do the same. We could keep doing this for many of them, but we'll do one more. We head on, so we pick our search key, our lookup value. Then we have to tell it what column to look for that in. And then we have to tell them what other column to return. And remember, it defaults to exact match, so that's what we want. So here we see that. So now if we were to put in another name in here, like say I put in my name. Oh no, because I'm not in the list. So you're going to get NA if what you're searching for is not in that participant list column. Other things that you might see, this one is in, but we know the caseworker, but follow-up completed is blank. And if you do that in Excel, you'll see a 0. And that is because Fatima Garcia, there is nothing in the follow-up completed. So if you want to take 5 minutes and go ahead and give that a try.
We had a quick question. Can we see the equation in C11 again?
Yeah, you can see the equation here, up here in the formula bar. I've also put, or do you want to see how it's typed in?
Well, I see it now. Kelly says she sees it now, but gets an error message.
It's an error message. Okay. So, and if so, maybe start over. Maybe start your formula. Maybe there's like no columns, like commas, if you forgot the commas. Where's the error? So you see the formula here, but then if you type in a name, are you getting an error message? Maybe the name is not typed correctly. Because remember, it's looking for this name here based on this formula. So if the formula looks exactly the same, then maybe the error message is because of the participant name.
Kelly said, gotcha.
Okay.
So this is our last activity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Kelly writes again, I didn't type a name and it works.
Yeah. If you didn't put anything in the name search, there, it says NA because it's blank. But if you type in one of the names from the spreadsheet, then you're going to see it start working. I think, Kate, I'm going to give you 2 minutes at the end. I think I can do the best practices in about 3 minutes. So,
Amazing, amazing.
okay, I'll be succinct. Some of them I've already like gone over. So,
Yeah, yeah. And as people are working on XLOOKUP,
mhm.
I would love to hear, I don't know about you, Tara, I would love to hear in the chat um, what kinds of spreadsheets you imagine using these skills with. Because I just think that that would be really useful for CICP in the future to understand which jobs within the sector would be using this kind of skill set.
Oh, so you're asking people who may have finished to like
Yeah.
write in
Once
the
you,
chat if they think what they think they might
yeah.
use
Are
this for.
you?
Yeah.
Is my assumption correct? You're going to use this on membership lists and on granting information and on clientele, or like tell me how you imagine using these skills.
We should have had that in our follow-up survey.
We should have had it in our. Oh well, next time.
I think we should follow up like a few months down the road and say, what have you used this for? So
Great. Oh, here we go. I use them on volunteer and client databases where I have to filter groups and languages and skills. Thank you, Josephina. Amazing.
yeah, I imagine there's probably a lot of uses for it.
Yeah.
I don't use it very often, so but this one here, like this little kind of search table, it's good to have one table per sheet, but you could have that up in the top right, separated from the other table, and just have a quick little place to search instead of scrolling down through a big table. So
For sure.
yeah.
And Kelly says she's going to use it to analyze custom questions in our membership database. Yeah. Having run an arts membership-based association, that was my immediate, like, as soon as I saw the spreadsheets, I was like, oh, this is like a membership list. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and once those lists get really big, it's challenging, right?
Definitely. Okay, we are at 5 minutes. Does
Okay.
anybody have any questions?
Lingering questions? And don't worry if maybe if it's taking more time for you, honestly, you can go back and watch the videos and try again too. So, but if you have any questions now, we can address them.
Hi, Anna. Yes, there will be lots more webinars this year. Our next webinar is going to be in June about specifically how to use the CICP data and sort of federal data in general.
Survey data, how to read survey data in general,
Right.
and then how to use our data dashboards and things like that.
And Anna, I will send you, those recordings are available on the Community Education Center. We also have a YouTube channel. And I will absolutely send them to the participants so that they arrive right in your inbox so that you can see the video recordings too.
Okay, so I was going to jump over to best practices if we don't have any other questions. Because I just want to go over.
Go for it.
Okay, I just need a couple minutes for this one. So some of them I've already mentioned, like having things formatted as tables can really help, especially when you start doing, different things with functions and formulas. It makes everything easier. Another thing is, so this is Excel, but I'm just using this as an example. These work for sheets as well. Another thing is you can see I have different tabs across the bottom that are color coded. So these orange ones are because this data is all related. It's donation data. So if you have a few, you can color code to help make a visual that's easier for people to read. And a lot of the practices I'm giving you today are based on when you have other people using the workbooks as well. So just how to kind of reduce errors. But also what's really important is having that raw data table on its own, right? So here we can see I have here the donation list, and this is where people are inputting information on our donations. I have on a separate sheet, I have some totals happening here, some calculations. And then I might have another one for charts. So this is really going to depend on how you want to organize it and how much information you have. But having your tables on separate sheets really helps you in the long run, because if you say had a little table here and then another one underneath, think about how much harder it would be to do, or even if you had multiples, you know, it makes it harder to highlight columns, and then people are scrolling around. It might be a lot of information and people are scrolling around to be able to see it. So you get lots of sheets, so you can color code them, use them. The other thing is, it's really great if you have a bunch of people using it to have a sort of how to use this workbook that really tells people, if you think about like, if lots of people are using it, or even just a few, and you get the same questions all the time, this is just, and you can design this however you want, but things you would want to include is what kind of data is going in here, which tables they're inputting data, how often. I have here calculations, a little bit of information about when to refresh them, charts as well. When do we update our charts? And then cell styles. Having a consistent cell style is great. And this tells people they can visually see that the orange ones are input cells. That's where they put information, but the calculation cells look different. Okay, and we saw that in our donation summaries. This is a formula, so it kind of tells people not to be going in there. And also saving instructions, however that looks. Do you want people saving just updating, or what are they updating in the file name? Where are they saving things? Are they saving copies, or are they just updating as they go along? So all of that information customized, and just a little about page. The other thing is that when it comes to protecting, there's a couple things we can do as well. One is called data validation. Sounds really complicated, but really what it means is that you're setting up a drop-down list. So when somebody, and there's resource videos on how to do this, when someone clicks on here, they're going to get a list, and that just reduces the errors and makes things easier for, like, if we're filtering things out or searching for things, we have fewer errors going on. Another thing that helps with fewer errors is protecting a sheet. So if I came in here, I have some calculations and summaries. If I protected this, and you can protect a sheet, you can protect a whole workbook. There's resources on how to do that. But just something to consider. And then be careful, make sure you keep your passwords if you do a protection on a sheet. And you can share that with maybe select people who are going to be like updating things like the tables. Yeah, so that's just a few things that that you can do. But I think the most important is making use of your tabs and keeping your tables separate from some of the other things on there as well.
There is nothing worse than, creating a wonderful spreadsheet, and then one of your colleagues goes in and messes it up a little bit.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Tara, for jam-packed amount of information in an hour.
I know we were rushing. I'll stick around after you do the survey, follow-up survey, because if there's more questions, I'm happy to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I just put the feedback on. Thanks, Kelly. I just put the feedback survey in the link. I will send it to you over email as well. We really appreciate you participating. As I mentioned, our next webinar will be in June, and there will be more later in the year as well. And we will absolutely keep you updated. Another way that you can remain updated about everything that CICP does is to subscribe to our newsletter. And I've just put the link in here. But I recognize that it is 2:00 here in Eastern time, and some of you probably have to run. So thanks again. Thank you so much, Tara. And we really, really appreciate you taking this time with us.
Great. Oh, it's lovely. It's wonderful to be here and be able to do this.
Yeah. And if you have questions, please put up your hand or put a question in the chat if you want to stay for a couple of minutes and ask Tara something specific.
I'm just going to stop the recording now.